The ocean is a vastness most of us know only from the surface, a rolling skin of waves that stretches farther than our eyes can follow. But beneath that shifting horizon lies a world so foreign that even astronauts have seen it more rarely than the far side of the moon. The deepest point of this world is called the Mariana Trench, a scar in the crust of our planet carved by the slow grinding of tectonic plates. At its most profound depth, the Challenger Deep, it plunges more than 11 kilometers below the surface. To imagine this is to think of Mount Everest inverted, swallowed by water, its peak still falling short of the trench floor by more than 2 kilometers. Here, light dies quickly. The first 30 meters beneath the surface still shimmer with sunlit colors, the familiar realm of corals and reef fish. By 200 meters, twilight rules. By 1,000 meters, there is no trace of the sun at all. The trench begins where that midnight ocean descends further still, a blackness so complete that even the strongest human-built lights are swallowed after only a few meters. The environment is one of silence, cold, and unrelenting pressure. The water weighs down with more than 1,000 times the force felt at the surface. Imagine the weight of 50 jumbo jets pressing on a single body, and you will approach the experience of being alive at those depths. And yet, there is life. Not sparse, not accidental, but adapted and thriving. Organisms that would die instantly in air or in the upper ocean have shaped themselves to endure the crushing pressure and frozen darkness. Their bodies bend instead of break. Their chemistry flows with resilience. Their senses are tuned not to light but to faint vibrations, to glimmers of bioluminescence, to the smallest change in movement of the water around them. The trench is inhospitable, but it is not empty. It is crowded with predators and prey locked in a struggle as old as life itself, only hidden from our sight. The thought unsettles and fascinates in equal measure. What monsters lie waiting where no light reaches? What kind of predator evolves when eyes are useless and camouflage means transparency itself? These are not the imagined beasts of sailors' tales, but real creatures recorded by cameras, captured in trawls, examined by biologists who risked the descent. Each of them carries adaptations that seem impossible until you realize that impossibility is the price of survival in the abyss. The descent into the trench is not simply a dive into depth. It is a dive into time. The water is ancient, having cycled through the ocean currents for hundreds of years before reaching these valleys. The creatures resemble the distant past, as if time moves differently here, preserving forms long vanished from the shallows. Sharks that appear more like eels than modern hunters drift slowly with wide, unfathomable jaws. Fish with translucent heads and eyes that stare upward through their skulls glide in silence. Worms that eat bone itself thrive on carcasses that sink from above, turning death into survival. Every meter deeper strips away another assumption about what life needs. We think of oxygen, yet here oxygen is scarce and some organisms live on methane and sulfides. We think of sunlight, yet here all light is generated from within, a spark of blue or green flickering from the flank of a fish, the lure of an angler, or the burst of a squid under threat. We think of warmth, yet here the water hovers just above freezing, steady and unchanging, colder than most winters, but constant across centuries. Imagine being inside a submersible, its metal hull creaking with the pressure, the lights cutting through black water like thin blades. Outside, nothing moves, until a flash appears. A mouth filled with fangs larger than its head drifts past, blind yet perfectly aware of your presence. In the silence, every instinct screams danger, and yet what you are witnessing is simply daily life for the residents of the trench. For them, hunger never ceases, for the rains of dead plankton and fish from above are thin. Every encounter is a matter of survival. It is in this setting that the most dangerous creatures of the trench dwell. They are not dangerous to humans in the ordinary sense, for few of us will ever be within reach of their teeth or jaws. They are dangerous because they embody extremes of evolution, because their entire existence is violence against the improbable. They are living reminders that life adapts without mercy, shaping monsters where only monsters endure. And in the depths of the Mariana Trench, such monsters are not rare exceptions, they are the rule. What you will encounter in these chapters are the predators that define this world. From dragonfish whose bodies glow with traps of light, to sharks that hunt with ancient jaws, to worms that consume skeletons from within, to amoebas large enough to carpet the seafloor, each is a chapter of the abyssal story. Each is evidence that the trench is not a graveyard, but a hidden theater where survival plays out in silence. And so we begin, not by looking at the surface, but by descending, by letting the last light fade behind us until even memory of it disappears. The trench waits, a world without dawn or dusk, where darkness is eternal, where cold is constant, and where the predators have become more than creatures. They are shadows of evolution, sharpened to perfection in a place where mistakes do not survive. The deeper the descent, the more the familiar rules of the ocean unravel. In the upper layers, food chains follow the logic of plants, herbivores, and predators. Sunlight fuels plankton, plankton feeds small fish, and larger predators rise to seize them. In the trench, that order collapses. Sunlight never enters. Photosynthesis does not exist. Instead, survival is dictated by scarcity and by patience. Most of the energy here falls from above in a slow rain of organic matter known as marine snow, a drift of microscopic bodies, shells, and waste that sinks for months or even years before reaching the floor. What seems like dust in the black water is in fact sustenance, and for many creatures of the trench it is the difference between persistence and death. Yet the most formidable hunters cannot rely on crumbs from the surface. They must pursue prey in conditions that make hunting nearly impossible. There is no light to see by, little sound to guide, and distances that are measured not in meters, but in vast emptiness. To kill in the trench requires adaptations that border on the fantastic. Bodies become living traps, mouths expand far beyond proportion, teeth turn into weapons that cannot let go once they pierce, and lures of glowing light deceive victims into offering themselves. The trench is not a silent grave. It is a living stage where pressure for survival is written into the bones and flesh of everything that moves. Consider the water itself. At 11 kilometers down, every square centimeter of a body feels a pressure of more than 1,000 atmospheres. To a human, this would be instant death, organs crushed and blood forced into collapse. The creatures of the trench have evolved to meet this reality by abandoning structures that would break. Their bones are reduced to fragile supports or replaced entirely by cartilage. Their bodies are soft, gelatinous, able to deform under force and return unharmed. What would shatter us leaves them untouched, as if they were sculpted from liquid itself. Temperature is no less harsh. The deep ocean settles at just above freezing, near 2 degrees Celsius. Unlike the surface, which warms and cools with seasons, the trench remains eternally cold, a climate without change. This constancy has etched its signature into the metabolism of the abyssal creatures. They move slowly, conserving energy, their lives stretched out across decades. Growth is measured in millimeters per year. Reproduction occurs rarely, sometimes only once in a lifetime. Everything is slowed by cold, and yet this very stillness has given rise to endurance unmatched in shallower waters. The submersible continues its plunge, meters ticking by, the hull groaning as if the ocean itself were testing its strength. Instruments record silence, then faint vibrations, then sudden bursts of light. A fish no longer than a hand glows with blue pulses, drawing invisible prey closer. A squid flickers with a pattern of green sparks before vanishing into darkness. This is not random. Bioluminescence is the language of the abyss, the only form of light where none exists. Some use it to lure, others to confuse, and still others to hide, countershading their bodies so predators below cannot see their silhouettes against the faint glimmers from the surface. In this way, the trench is not utterly dark. It is filled with ghostly flashes, each with meaning, each part of a silent conversation of survival. There is a paradox in this world. The trench feels alien, as though no life should be able to exist here, yet the creatures are products of the same evolution that shaped us. They are not invaders from another planet. They are Earth's own, shaped by the crushing weight of water and the absence of light. If life can adapt here, perhaps it can adapt anywhere. It is not surprising that scientists look to the trench as a mirror for other worlds, imagining oceans beneath the icy crust of Europa or Enceladus, moons where sunlight never reaches but where water and energy still reside. To descend into the trench is to step not only into Earth's most extreme habitat, but into a model for what life might look like beyond our world. As pressure builds, even sound behaves differently. At the surface, a splash or a whale call travels far. In the trench, sound moves faster and carries longer, but the creatures that live here do not waste it. Silence dominates, broken only by the occasional groan of shifting rock or the faint rasp of movement. Predators hunt in this silence, sensing vibrations through lateral lines or specialized organs. Prey freeze at the faintest disturbance, hoping invisibility will save them. The absence of noise is not emptiness. It is tension, stretched across the black water like an endless pause before something unseen moves. It is tempting to think of this place as a desert, barren and hostile. Yet the trench holds more biomass than expected, much of it microbial, hidden in sediments and rocks. These microbes feed on chemicals leaking from the seafloor, on methane, on hydrogen sulfide. They form the foundation of oases that bloom in the darkness, supporting worms and clams and crustaceans in abundance. Even in the deepest cold, life engineers new beginnings. Every carcass that falls from above becomes a feast, attracting swarms of scavengers, fish with oversized jaws, worms that bore into bones. Nothing is wasted. Death itself is recycled into survival. To stand on the edge of this knowledge is to feel both wonder and unease. We know so little, and what we do know is extraordinary. Less than a handful of crude dives have ever reached the Challenger deep. Cameras and probes have glimpsed only fragments. The true abundance and diversity of the trench remain hidden, waiting in pressure and silence, and in that ignorance lies a haunting truth. The most dangerous creatures of the trench are still mysteries, shadows caught on a lens, hints of jaws and fins in the flicker of artificial light. We descend further still into the zone where even imagination struggles. What if the next flash of light reveals not a small drifting fish, but something larger? Something shaped by millions of years in perfect isolation. The abyss has kept its secrets for longer than human history. Now, at last, we begin to look, to listen, to understand. And with every discovery comes the reminder that in the world where light dies, danger and beauty are never far apart. The descent reaches its last stretch. Below lies the floor of the trench, a place that seems more a concept than a location. For in the eternal dark there is no horizon, no sky, no distance. The seafloor appears in the submersible's lights like a barren desert of silt and jagged rocks, yet the stillness is deceptive. Life hides in the sediments, in burrows, in the delicate folds of the terrain. The trench bottom is not lifeless. It is waiting, a place where patience is survival itself. The Challenger. Deep lies more than 11 kilometers down, a depth so vast that a human standing on the surface would never feel a connection to the life below. But here, in this silent valley, creatures go about their lives as they have for millions of years. Snailfish with bodies that seem barely held together by skin and cartilage drift just above the bottom, their gelatinous forms perfectly adapted to pressures that would destroy steel. Xenophyrophores, single-celled organisms the size of dinner plates, spread across the seafloor in shapes that look like alien architecture. Around fallen carcasses, Osedax worms burrow into bone, their root-like tendrils dissolving fat and oil, their feathery plumes waving in currents too faint for human senses. It is here that the trench reveals its most profound lesson. Life is not only about abundance, it is about endurance. In the trench, survival is a negotiation with scarcity. Energy arrives rarely, carried down as sinking snow or as the occasional body of a whale, a shark, or some other giant of the surface world. When such bounty appears, the stillness erupts into frenzy. Crabs, worms, fish, and microbes converge, stripping flesh, boring into bone, turning death into energy that feeds the community for years. Nothing is wasted. The trench turns every fragment into continuity. As the submersible lingers, its lights catch movement from the edge of sight. A shadow slides across the beams, not fleeing, not approaching, but present. It is impossible to know what it is without drawing closer, but the shape suggests a predator built for ambush, a body sculpted by silence and darkness. The pilot steadies the craft, the cameras adjust, and in the distance, a flicker of light pulses once, twice, and then disappears. It could be a dragonfish flashing its lure, it could be a squid warding off an intruder, or it could be something unknown. That is the enduring truth of the trench. The more we see, the more questions multiply. For the creatures of the abyss, danger is not a choice. It is the law of existence. To live here is to be both hunter and hunted, to trust in adaptations that would be grotesque anywhere else, but here are necessities. Fangs longer than the skull, jaws that extend outward like traps, transparent flesh, light produced by living organs, bodies that collapse into near-fluid softness to resist pressure. Each adaptation is extreme, yet each is common. In the trench, the unusual is the norm. From the surface, it is tempting to think of the ocean as an endless calm. From above, the Mariana Trench is no more than a line on a map, a distant name in a catalogue of geography. But in truth, it is a frontier where life has proved itself far more inventive than we imagined. The most dangerous creatures of the trench are not nightmares born of imagination. They are the result of evolution's persistence, of natural selection sculpting forms that make survival possible in places where survival seems impossible. And so, as the submersible prepares to ascend, the last look into the abyss lingers. The lights fade, the shadows reclaim the view, and silence resumes its reign. Above waits the familiar world of air, sunlight, and color. Below remains the abyss, unchanged by our brief visit, still home to predators and prey locked in their endless dance. This is where our exploration begins. The trench is not empty. It is filled with life as alien as anything we might hope to find on distant planets, and yet it is Earth's own creation. To enter its darkness is to step outside of the ordinary and into a world where light dies, but life endures, fierce and unyielding. The first mysteries have been revealed, the deeper mysteries lie ahead. In the chapters to follow, we will meet the hunters that rule this underworld, the dragonfish with its glowing lure, the fangtooth with its impossible jaws, the frilled shark, a ghost from prehistory, the goblin shark, armed with a jaw that strikes like lightning, the snailfish pressed to its limits by pressure alone, the worms that eat bone, the squid that wears a cloak of light, the angler that carries its mate like a parasite, the amoeba that builds cathedrals of sediment, and the unseen ecosystems born not of sunlight but of chemicals rising from the planet itself. The abyss is ready to tell its story, and it begins with predators. Darkness is not empty in the trench. It is an economy of light measured in pulses and glows, an alphabet of sparks written by bodies that have learned to make their own illumination. In this realm, the most dangerous hunters are not the largest nor the fastest. They are those that have mastered silence and deception. Among them, the dragonfish drift like moving traps, and the fangtooth fish glide with jaws more weapon than mouth. They rule the middle and lower reaches of the water that borders the trench, and their presence turns the void into an ambush ground where a single mistake ends a life. Imagine the water at 1,000 meters. The last memory of the sun has long since faded. The pressure is already hundreds of times greater than at the surface, and the temperature sits near 2 degrees Celsius. The submersible lights reveal a space the color of wet ink. Something flickers, a bead of blue light suspended in nothing, and behind it, a long, lean body appears just long enough for teeth to catch the beam. This is a dragonfish. Its scales are reduced, its skin so dark that it drinks light like a sponge, its head armed with fangs that curve inward to hold prey the instant they touch. From its chin hangs a barbel, a thin filament tipped with a luminous organ. The fish raises and lowers this lure with delicate control, sketching a private signal that only the hungry recognize. Bioluminescence is the chemistry that powers these signals. The fish stores a compound we call luciferin and an enzyme we call luciferase. When these meet in the presence of oxygen, the reaction releases energy as cold light. No heat, no flame, just a clean glow tuned to travel far through seawater. Most deep sea light is blue because blue penetrates seawater better than other colors. But some dragonfish carry a secret in their tissues. They manufacture a red glow that is nearly invisible to other animals at depth because most cannot see red. The dragonfish eyes are different. Inside their retinas are pigments that catch longer wavelengths, or in some lineages chemical helpers that extend their vision. The result is a sniper advantage. The fish can shine a red beam like a private flashlight that reveals prey without warning it. In darkness, where surprise is everything, this is the difference between hunger and a full stomach. The body plan of the dragonfish is tuned to this life. The bones are light, the flesh is gelatinous, the swim bladder is absent so there is no gas to compress. Instead, buoyancy comes from oils and from the careful balance of tissues. When pressure rises, the body flexes rather than breaks. The jaws hinge wide and the skull opens like a trap, allowing the fish to swallow prey nearly half its own length. The teeth are long and transparent, a glassy material that does not reflect light from the lure, another adaptation that keeps the ambush invisible until it is too late. Along the sides of the fish, small light organs called photophores glow in patterns that may conceal the silhouette from predators below or signal to potential mates. Even the flesh can be cloaked by microscopic pigments that absorb stray photons, reducing any accidental shine. In the language of survival, the dragonfish speaks softly and carries a mouth of knives. Hunting here is a trade between patience and precision. The dragonfish does not chase by speed. It floats nearly motionless and lets the lure work. The barbel twitches like a drifting worm, then pauses, then quivers again, the pattern varied enough to trick a crustacean or a small fish. The victim closes the distance, guided by a hunger that knows no other light source. In the instant before it strikes the decoy, the dragonfish lunges. Muscles fire, the jaw swings wide, teeth scissor shut, and the void closes around the struggle as if it never happened. The submersible camera records only the fading afterimage of the lure and a few drifting scales. The senses that guide this hunt are specialized. Eyes are useful when there is any light at all, and the dragonfish certainly use them, but they also read the water with a lateral line that detects vibration. Every flick of a fin, every tremor of a crustacean limb, each sends ripples through the water that the fish can translate into distance and direction. Where sound would reveal the hunter, the dragonfish remain quiet, feeling rather than calling. In places where competition is fierce and food is rare, silence is an evolutionary weapon. Though the trench itself falls into the Hadal zone, many of these hunters prowl the steep slopes and the neighboring abyssal plains where depths of 1 to 4 kilometers rule. Here, dragonfish share the black with other predators that hunt by touch and shimmer. Among them is a fish whose mouth appears to be made entirely of teeth. The fang-tooth fish gains its name not by accident. Its teeth are the largest relative to body size of any fish known. They are so long that when the mouth closes, the top of the skull carries special sheaths to keep the lower fangs from piercing the brain. The jaws meet in a bony vise that resists the thrashing of prey. The body is compact and robust compared with many deep-sea forms, with heavy skull bones that suggest a life of collision and force within a world that usually favors softness. The fang-tooth fish lives deeper on average than many of its rivals. Adults have been recorded beyond 2 kilometers and sometimes much deeper, while juveniles may spend time in shallower water before descending as they mature. Their eyes are small, a clear sign that vision is not their priority. Instead, they rely on touch at a distance. Their lateral line is sensitive, and their head bears pits that pick up changes in the water around them. When you cannot see, you must feel the ocean with your body. The fang-tooth fish does this with accuracy that borders on uncanny. In complete darkness, it can detect the approach of a passing animal and pivot to meet it, jaws already open. The feeding strategy is simple and brutal. The fish patrols slowly, conserving energy. When the sensors register movement, it accelerates in a short burst and snaps shut with a bite that is impossible to shake free from. The great teeth pierce and hold. The skull braces the shock. The fish can then swallow the victim whole or tear it into pieces when the size demands. Because the deep sea offers food rarely, the stomach is elastic and the metabolism is tuned to survive long fasts. Scientists who have brought fang-tooth fish to the surface have noted how hard they are compared with other deep forms. While many abyssal fish feel like jelly, the fang-tooth fish feels like a compact machine. The presence of both dragonfish and fang-tooth fish along the trench rim creates a layered danger. One kills by deception and light. The other kills by pressure and bite. Prey that evolve to ignore lures fall to vibration hunters. Prey that evolve to freeze at the faintest ripple are invited by the glimmer of a barbel that seems to say, safety. In this arms race, the losers are edited out quickly. What remains is a community purified by scarcity, where each adaptation is honed by years beyond counting. These animals are not exotic exceptions. They are common in the darkness, the result of natural selection playing out under constraints that would erase most life. If they seem monstrous, it is because we are creatures of air and daylight. To live in the trench, you must be a different kind of beautiful. Teeth are not cruelty here. Teeth are tools that turn rare opportunities into life. Light is not decoration. Light is a verb that feeds. Silence is not absence. Silence is strategy. To understand why these hunters thrive, consider energy. The rain of organic matter from the surface is not generous. Marine snow falls slowly and breaks apart as it sinks. Large carcasses are rare, and when they do arrive, every scavenger gathers in a storm of feeding that strips flesh in days. In between windfalls, the system leans on small fish and shrimp that are themselves travelers between layers. Dragonfish and fangtooth fish are poised at these crossroads. The dragonfish can steal a meal from a passing swarm by turning its lure into a patch of false hope. The fangtooth fish can detect the weak swimming of a tired migrant and convert it into fuel. When a system is built on uncertainty, the best design is one that turns brief encounters into certainty. Their reproduction is suited to the deep rhythm. Growth is slow, maturation takes years. Spawning may happen in seasons we cannot easily see, since the deep ocean lacks classic seasons of temperature and light. Some species release eggs that rise into shallower waters where larvae find more food. There they grow until they are strong enough to descend. The ocean thus becomes a ladder of childhood and an abyss of adulthood. A dragonfish that glows in the trench began as a transparent thread higher up, feeding on plankton in the dim twilight, learning the language of light before sinking into silence. Every feature of these fish whispers the same principle. Adaptations are not ornaments, they are answers written by time to questions posed by pressure, cold, and dark. Why the transparent teeth? So they do not betray their own lure. Why the red light? So prey can be seen without being warned. Why the overbuilt jaw? Because a lost prey may not come again for days. Why the sensitivity to vibration? Because in darkness touch is sight, and yet they are part of a wider pattern. The trench and its flanks are a mosaic of habitats braided by currents and gradients. Where oxygen dips lower, some fish retreat and others advance. Where water rises from the deep, bringing nutrients from far away, prey congregate and the hunters follow. Even in a world that seems steady, change is constant, set by distant winds and currents that begin thousands of kilometers away. The silent killers ride these invisible tides exactly as hawks ride thermals above a desert. The space is different. The rules are the same. Hunger meets opportunity. Adaptation meets constraint. Life endures. As the submersible watches, a dragonfish drifts into view with its lure dimmed. It hangs in the water like a thought. Then the barbel brightens with a soft red, a color the camera barely registers. A small crustacean flicks its limbs toward the glow. The fish hardly moves. The mouth opens. The lights blink out. When they return, the water is empty again. Far away, a compact shadow passes, a hint of jaw and a suggestion of teeth that look too big for the skull. The fangtooth fish has made its patrol and is already beyond the edge of the lights. The ocean erases their signatures with the same patience it uses to sculpt trenches. In this erasure, the hunters find their cover, and in their cover they define the danger of the deep. The silence of the abyss is never empty. It hums with faint vibrations, with pulses of light, with chemical signals drifting on slow currents. To survive here is to listen to every one of them. The dragonfish and the fangtooth fish embody two different philosophies of life in the dark. One is a deceiver, crafting illusions with light. The other is a sensor, turning water into an extension of its body. Between them, they show how evolution bends toward extremes when resources are rare and competition is endless. The eyes of a dragonfish are larger than seems reasonable for such a lean predator. They are adapted not for detail but for the faintest photon, for any scrap of light that might betray the movement of a shrimp or the distant flicker of another lure. Where most fish cannot even register red, the dragonfish can, and so it alone in this darkness can shine a secret lantern and still remain unseen. Inside its retina, layers of photoreceptor cells have shifted to extend their sensitivity. The chemistry of its pigments allows it to reach further across the spectrum. Even the shape of the lens helps focus scarce photons onto the sensitive surface. To an observer, it might seem fragile, but to the dragonfish, it is precision. The fangtooth fish is different. Its eyes are small, almost vestigial. This is because its world is not made of light at all. Its lateral line is a masterpiece of sensory evolution. Along the flanks, tiny pores open into canals filled with hair cells that bend with the slightest movement of water. Every flick of a tail, every beat of a fin, becomes a vibration in the canal. The fangtooth fish does not need to see. It feels the shape of a swimming animal as clearly as we might see a silhouette against the sky. Even the current stirred by the slow drift of a jelly is enough. The skull transmits these signals to the brain and the response is immediate. The fish does not pause to identify. It lunges and bites, and in a world where hesitation means starvation, that reflex is a perfect weapon. Both predators live in water where oxygen is lower than in shallows and where temperature slows metabolism. They have adapted by building blood proteins that cling to oxygen more tightly than ours. Their hemoglobin seizes every molecule and carries it efficiently. Their mitochondria, the power stations of cells, operate steadily at low temperatures. The result is an energy system that works on thin rations. When prey is scarce, these fish slow their lives, drifting almost motionless for hours, waiting for the signal that food is near. When prey appears, they explode into motion with a speed that seems impossible until you remember how long they have been conserving every joule of energy for this one moment. Pressure shapes them in ways less visible but just as profound. Proteins fold differently under thousands of atmospheres. Enzymes that work in our bodies at the surface would twist and fail at depth. The dragonfish and the fangtooth fish carry versions of these molecules that are stabilized, reinforced by subtle chemical changes that keep their shapes intact. Their membranes are packed with special lipids that remain fluid even in freezing conditions, so their cells continue to function when ours would freeze into rigidity. This is why they do not collapse. Their whole existence is written at the molecular level to defy conditions that seem hostile to life. In the trench slopes where these animals roam, prey are not only small fish and crustaceans but also migrants from above. Every day, countless animals drift down from the upper ocean in what scientists call diel vertical migration, the largest daily movement of life on the planet. Shrimp, lanternfish, and other small creatures rise at night to feed near the surface and sink back down by day to avoid predators. Some descend deep enough to brush the trench walls. The dragonfish are waiting with lures ready, the fangtooth fish are waiting with jaws wide. This cycle turns the abyss into a highway of food, and predators tune themselves to its rhythm like clocks without daylight. Reproduction at such depths is a puzzle. Few human eyes have witnessed it. What we know is pieced together from anatomy and from the rare capture of spawning individuals. Dragonfish release eggs that drift upward, a gamble that the larvae will find better feeding in higher layers. Fangtooth fish do the same, and their young look nothing like the adults. Juveniles are delicate, with long trailing fins floating like bits of thread in mid-water. As they grow, they descend, their bodies changing shape, their jaws enlarging, their teeth forming until the recognizable hunter emerges. In this way, the ocean divides their lives into chapters: childhood in dim shallows, adulthood in eternal dark. Encounters between these predators are rare to witness, but easy to imagine. A dragonfish hovering with its lure bright might find itself detected by the lateral line of a fangtooth. A fangtooth drifting through the black might wander into the hidden beam of red light cast by a dragonfish. In each case, the outcome would depend on size, on speed, on luck. There is no room for mercy. Hunger drives all decisions here. These fish are not malicious. They are efficient, their existence pared down to survival alone. The trench rim is not crowded in the way a coral reef is crowded. Distances between individuals can be vast. A camera may drift for hours without sighting a single large fish. But when the prey come in swarms, the predators converge like shadows out of nowhere. In these brief moments, the trench feels alive with hunters, each one perfected for its task. The dragonfish weave a false constellation of lights. The fang-toothed fish move like silent torpedoes through the black. The result is a world that is both empty and deadly, a paradox that only the deep ocean can sustain. The silent killers remind us that beauty and terror are not opposites. They are sometimes the same. To see a dragonfish pulse, its lure is to witness something both exquisite and lethal. To see a fang-toothed jaw open is to realize how far life will go to seize a chance. In the dark, where no eye should ever see them, they have evolved into forms that seem designed for nightmare. Yet they are no nightmare. They are proof. Proof that life does not stop when the lights go out. Proof that survival writes its own rules, and that those rules are sharper, quieter, and stranger than we could have guessed. The trench does not forgive hesitation. Every creature here carries the marks of an arms race that has no truce, no rest, no time to waste. The dragonfish and the fang-toothed fish embody two different chapters of the same story, and in the end their legacy is not only their own survival, but the pressure they place upon every other species around them. The prey that live under their shadow evolve to grow faster, to migrate differently, to sharpen their own defenses of transparency or bioluminescence. Some shrimp glow in sudden flashes when attacked, scattering confusion into the water. Some small fish carry reflective scales that mirror the faint light around them, erasing their outline. Yet even these defenses are temporary. A dragonfish with its private red glow pierces the disguise. A fang-toothed fish with its vibration sense feels what reflections cannot hide. The trench is a classroom where deception is answered with counter-deception, and only the successful students persist. The danger they represent is not to us. Few humans will ever see them outside the beam of a submersible light or the glass of an aquarium tank where pressure has been relieved. They are not giants waiting to drag down ships. Their danger is written in the way they command their environment, the way they dictate the shape of prey populations, the way they sculpt the ecosystem with each silent strike. In the balance of the abyss, they are keystones, holding together the structure by feeding on what would otherwise overrun the system. Remove them, and the careful order of scarcity would collapse into something even more fragile. When explorers first hauled them up in nets, they seemed too grotesque to be real. Dragonfish with skin so black it seemed to swallow light, with teeth that curved like glass needles. Fang-toothed fish with jaws so out of proportion they looked like broken fossils. But the more we study them, the more sense they make. Each trait is logical when food is scarce, when pressure is relentless, when the only light is your own. What looks monstrous to us is efficiency written in bone and muscle. They are mirrors held up to our expectations, reminding us that life does not shape itself to please our imagination. It shapes itself to endure. Consider the teeth again. The dragonfish uses them like a trap, long and curved inward, impossible to escape once the jaw snaps shut. The fang-toothed fish wields them like spears, piercing and holding against any struggle. Between the two, you see strategies that echo across nature. One deceives and ensnares, the other collides and impales. On land, we see echoes in spiders and in cats, in hawks and in snakes. Predation is not invention, it is repetition under different rules. The trench does not invent new ideas so much as refine old ones into sharper edges. At these depths, encounters between hunter and prey are silent flashes in an endless night. To a submersible drifting on the slope, it seems empty until a lure glows or a shadow cuts across the lights. Then the drama erupts, quick and decisive, and is gone again. In that sense, the trench is like a vast stage set for sudden scenes, played without audience, without applause for millions of years. The dragonfish and the fang-toothed fish are actors in this play, their roles perfected by time. We are the late arrivals catching a glimpse from the edge of the curtain. What remains most haunting is not their appearance, but their persistence. They have survived countless shifts in climate, in ocean currents, in chemistry. They were here when ice ages bound the surface, when continents moved and reshaped the seas. They remain now, unchanged in their purpose, while on the surface human civilization has risen and forgotten them. The deep sea is not immune to change, but it is slow, and in that slowness, Predators like these endure almost timelessly, and so when we call them silent killers, we are not exaggerating. They kill without roar, without chase, without spectacle. They kill by waiting, by sensing, by deceiving, by seizing. They remind us that power does not need to be loud. In the deep, silence is sharper than any sound. To witness them is to understand that evolution's most ruthless lessons are written in whispers. As the submersible rises again, the lights dimming behind, the images of dragonfish and fang-toothed fish remain fixed in the mind. Not nightmares, not myths, but real animals that drift and strike in darkness as ordinary parts of their world. Their danger is part of the architecture of the abyss, as natural as waves on the surface. Ahead lie other predators shaped by the same forces, but with different answers. Where the dragonfish deceives and the fang-tooth pierces, the next hunters are ghosts from an older era. They are sharks that carry the memory of prehistory in their bodies. One coils like a serpent and snaps with 300 teeth. The other extends a jaw outward like a trapdoor sprung in an instant. In the abyss, the story of danger is never finished. It only changes form. The abyss is not only a cradle of bizarre new forms, it is also a graveyard of the past, where creatures that vanished from the shallow seas still linger as if time itself has slowed. Among these ancient survivors are two hunters so strange that they feel like apparitions drifting through the deep. The frilled shark is often called a living fossil, a serpent-like predator whose lineage stretches back more than 80 million years, while the goblin shark prowls with a jaw that snaps forward like a weapon from some forgotten nightmare. To meet them is to meet prehistory alive, to see ghosts moving through the present. Imagine the beam of a submersible light sweeping across the trench slope. At first, only the void answers. Then, something long and pale grey unfurls from the dark. The body is eel-like, muscular with a head that narrows into a blunt snout. The mouth opens and reveals 300 needle-like teeth set in 25 rows, each curved backward to trap prey. This is the frilled shark. Its gills stretch across its throat in frilly red folds that give it its name, and its swimming is not the quick dart of modern sharks, but a slow undulation like a ribbon twisting in water. Watching it is like watching an echo of the Cretaceous, a time when dinosaurs still walked above and these hunters already drifted below. The frilled shark is rare to see alive because it inhabits depths beyond 1 kilometer, sometimes as deep as 1,500 meters or more, though it will rise closer to the surface on rare occasions. Its body is not armored like a great white. Its fins are small, its flesh soft, its skeleton light. These traits are not weaknesses in its world. In the cold, high-pressure trench margins, such features save energy and prevent collapse. The frilled shark does not sprint. It coils and lunges, striking with speed only in the last instant. When prey drifts close, its jaw hinges wide, the long rows of teeth forming a cage from which escape is impossible. Squid are a favored target, their soft bodies easy to trap, and evidence from stomachs suggests that the shark may track them by following schools into the depths. The 300 teeth are slender, each shaped like a trident, 3 points on a single base. They glisten like needles, and once prey is caught, the backward curve ensures retreat only drives the victim deeper into the mouth. The shark's bite is not about slicing through bone, but about seizing soft flesh and swallowing it whole. The jaws extend far back into the head, allowing enormous gape. The stomach can stretch to hold large meals, important in an ecosystem where food is rare, but the most haunting quality of the frilled shark is its appearance. Unlike the powerful torpedo forms of modern sharks, its body resembles the drawings of ancient sea serpents told in sailor tales. Its eyes are unblinking, its swimming a slow, ribboning motion. To the imagination, it is easy to see how legends of monsters could rise from chance encounters with such a form drifting up toward the surface in the dark of night. The reality is no less dramatic. This is an animal that has changed little since before humans existed, a predator perfected for a niche where slow patience and sudden ambush are better than speed. Where the frilled shark embodies the endurance of ancient design, the goblin shark seems to embody mutation itself. Its body is pale, almost ghostly pink or grey, and its snout projects forward in a flat blade-like form. Hidden within its head is a jaw built on hinges so unusual that it can shoot forward faster than the blink of an eye. When prey drifts near, the jaw launches out like a spring, teeth snapping forward to snare the victim before it can react. The sight of it is shocking even on video. The mouth leaps out like a living trap and then retracts back into the skull, dragging food with it. No other shark hunts with such an apparatus. The goblin shark lives deeper still than the frilled, often beyond 1 kilometer and down toward 3 kilometers, along continental slopes and trenches. Its flesh is flabby, its fins soft, its muscles weak compared with surface sharks. But in the deep ocean, strength is measured differently. Ambush and surprise are currency, and the goblin shark has invested fully. Its jaws are lined with sharp, nail-like teeth that spear fish and squid. Its long snout is not only a blade, but an antenna filled with electroreceptors called ampullae of Lorenzini. These organs sense the faint electric fields produced by every living body. In the black, this sense allows the shark to home in on prey without sight or sound. The jaw then delivers the capture in an instant. Its coloration is unlike most predators. The pale flesh and translucent skin reveal blood vessels, giving a pinkish, ghostly hue. In the beam of artificial lights, the goblin shark looks otherworldly, as though made of wax and bone rather than living tissue. Few survive long at the surface when caught, for their bodies are tuned to the crushing weight and freezing cold of the depths. But in their world, they are efficient. They drift with stillness, conserving energy, then erupt with the spring-loaded strike of their jaws. To see a goblin shark in action is to question what evolution can create. Its jaw can extend nearly 10% of its body length, a feat unrivaled in vertebrates. The mechanism is made possible by ligaments and muscles that store elastic energy, releasing it like a bowstring. It is a design sculpted by millions of years where every advantage of surprise counts. Prey that evade dragonfish lures or the blunt force of fang-tooth bites may still fall victim to the lightning strike of the goblin shark. Together, the frilled shark and the goblin shark illustrate how time and adaptation work differently in the deep. One holds onto an ancient pattern nearly unchanged, proving that old designs can endure if they still work. The other invents a mechanism so bizarre that it seems like a parody of predation, yet it thrives. Both are ghosts, one of the past, the other of evolution's imagination. To encounter them is to be reminded that the trench does not choose a single path. It preserves the old and crafts the new side by side, a museum and a laboratory at once. The frilled shark coils through the dark like a shadow from myth. The goblin shark strikes with a jaw that leaps like a phantom weapon. They are living ghosts, reminders that the abyss is older, stranger, and more inventive than any story told on the surface. And in their silence, they wait, unseen until the moment they reveal themselves, and by then it is always too late. The deep ocean is an engine of patience, and the frilled shark is perhaps its finest example. Its body is built for ambush rather than pursuit, and its entire life strategy flows from that. Unlike faster pelagic hunters such as the mako or the blue shark, the frilled shark relies on stealth, slow undulation, and the explosive coil of its body when it strikes. This movement is powered not by bursts of speed but by conservation. The long eel-like frame twists suddenly, and the prey is engulfed in a sweeping bite before it can flee. In some observations, the shark has been seen bending its body into an almost serpentine loop, then lashing forward with startling acceleration, a technique well suited to ambushing squid that hover motionless in the dark. Its reproduction remains cloaked in mystery, but what little is known reveals yet another adaptation to scarcity. The frilled shark carries its young in the womb for an extraordinarily long time. Estimates suggest gestation may last as long as 3.5 years, the longest of any vertebrate known. This slow pace mirrors the rhythm of the deep sea itself. Where prey is rare, where energy is limited, producing fewer but well-developed offspring may be the best strategy. The pups are born already equipped with full sets of teeth and a body length of nearly 1/2 meter, capable of fending for themselves from the start. There are no nurseries in the abyss, no shallow protected lagoons. The young must enter the darkness ready to survive, or they will not survive at all. The goblin shark offers a striking contrast. While far less is known about its reproduction, Captures of pregnant females have revealed litters of small, underdeveloped pups. Their numbers suggest that the goblin shark may gamble with quantity rather than duration. By producing more offspring, it increases the odds that some will endure the hazards of the trench. They too must drift into the abyss without guidance, relying on instincts carved by ancestry. The juveniles are even more fragile in appearance than the adults, but in the deep fragility is not weakness. It is adaptation to pressure. Their soft flesh yields where a rigid form would break. The physiology of both species reveals the hallmarks of life under relentless weight. Their skeletons are cartilaginous, lighter and more flexible than bone. Their tissues are filled with compounds called osmolytes that stabilize proteins against the crushing effect of pressure. Their cell membranes contain lipids that stay fluid at low temperature, ensuring chemical reactions can proceed even at near freezing. These invisible adjustments are as vital as teeth or jaws. Without them, life at depth would unravel. With them, the sharks can glide effortlessly through a world that to us seems impossible. Evolution has taken these sharks along different timelines. The frilled shark is a holdover from a lineage that diverged from modern sharks tens of millions of years ago. Its features are primitive not in the sense of weakness but in the sense of endurance. They have worked for ages and so have not been discarded. Its 6 gill slits, its elongated body, its ribbon-like motion all speak to a design that predates most modern fish. The goblin shark, by contrast, seems an experiment in novelty. Its jaw is not a relic but an innovation, one that has no parallel. To see them side by side is to see both memory and imagination preserved in living form. Encounters with these animals are exceedingly rare. The frilled shark occasionally rises into shallower water and has been captured by fishing nets, its body startling crews who expect nothing so serpentine. The goblin shark is even less common, with only a few dozen confirmed specimens studied in detail. When they are filmed alive, usually by submersibles or remotely operated vehicles, the images circulate quickly, their strangeness seizing the imagination of anyone who sees them. For once, the monster of the deep is not an invention but a reality. Yet when examined closely, the monsters reveal themselves to be creatures perfectly suited to their world. No more terrifying than a hawk or a wolf, simply efficient. Their role in the trench ecosystem is still being uncovered. Both are mid to high-level predators, feeding on fish, squid, and crustaceans. Their hunting maintains the balance of prey populations, ensuring that no single species overwhelms the fragile system. They are regulators, part of the same order that includes dragonfish and fangtooth fish, but working on larger prey and in different layers. The trench is a web where every link is taut. Remove one and the others tremble. It is worth remembering that our knowledge of them is incomplete. What little we know comes from brief glimpses, from specimens raised from depths where their bodies collapse under the change of pressure, from fragments of observation. The true lives of these sharks continue beyond our reach, in darkness too vast for our machines to patrol continuously. The frilled shark's gestation may be longer than we think. The goblin shark's hunting strategies may include behaviors we have never seen. There are answers waiting, but they lie hidden in kilometers of water, in silence that resists our intrusion. And so the frilled shark and the goblin shark drift in the abyss as they have for ages, unbothered by our ignorance, bound to rhythms we can only guess at. They are reminders that the ocean does not belong to us, that most of its inhabitants live entire lives without ever sensing our presence. They are proof that time moves differently in the deep, that evolution can preserve ancient blueprints while simultaneously sketching innovations more bizarre than fiction. They are not the largest predators of the trench, nor the most violent, but they are among the most haunting because they embody two visions at once: the memory of oceans long vanished and the possibility of oceans still to come. Watching them is like looking backward and forward through time, as though the abyss itself were a mirror of Earth's history, holding both past and future in the present. In the Hadal twilight, there is no day and no night, only the endless rhythm of stillness and sudden motion. The frilled shark and the goblin shark have mastered this rhythm, each in a way that seems almost contradictory, one by preserving a body plan ancient and simple, the other by inventing a jaw mechanism so strange it looks impossible. To watch them is to see two solutions to the same puzzle: how to find food in a desert of darkness. The frilled shark drifts like a ribbon through the water. Its long, flexible spine allows it to bend in slow waves, conserving energy, while its small fins act only as subtle guides. For hours it may move without a strike, waiting for a squid or fish to wander close. Then the body coils like a spring, and the head lunges forward with a speed that seems to appear out of nowhere. The teeth, each a trident of 3 points, catch soft flesh like a net, and the prey is swallowed whole. The silence returns as though nothing has happened. This style of hunting, patient and precise, reflects a creature adapted not to abundance but to famine. Every strike must count, and so every strike is prepared in silence. The goblin shark tells a different story. It does not coil, it does not lunge with its body. Instead, it carries a weapon inside its skull, a jaw that launches forward in a sudden extension. This jaw is powered by ligaments stretched tight inside the head. When released, the jaw shoots outward in less than the time it takes to blink, teeth snapping into prey before it can react. The shock is not only in the speed, but in the reach. The mouth can project nearly 10% of the shark's body length, a distance that in the dark is the difference between hunger and survival. Once the prey is caught, the jaw retracts, dragging it back into the mouth. It is an ambush weapon carried everywhere, a trapdoor hidden inside a ghostly face. When submersibles record these strikes, the footage spreads quickly among scientists and storytellers alike, for it is hard to believe such a design exists outside imagination. Yet it is real as the pressure and cold that shaped it. Evolution has no need for elegance as we understand it. It creates what works, and what works is preserved. In the trench, beauty is not smooth forms or bright colors. Beauty is efficiency, even if that efficiency looks monstrous. Both sharks remind us of time's power. The frilled shark shows that a body plan can endure for millions of years if it fits its niche. The goblin shark shows that novelty can arise, that new paths can be carved in the darkness. Side by side, they reveal the trench as both museum and laboratory, preserving relics while inventing futures. They are not opposites, but companions in the same story, proof that the abyss is not frozen in history, but alive with change. To imagine being their prey is to imagine a world without warning. In the black, a squid hovers near invisible. A flicker of pressure announces the approach of something large. Before it can flee, teeth close around it, dragging it into a cage of bone. Or a fish swims unaware until a pale shadow slides past, and suddenly a jaw leaps forward from that shadow, clamping down before the mind even registers danger. There is no chase, no long pursuit across the water, only instant violence followed by silence. The trench allows no waste of energy, and so predation is brief and decisive. In this way, the sharks shape not only their own survival, but the behavior of everything around them. Prey evolved to migrate carefully to avoid certain depths, to detect subtle vibrations, yet no adaptation is perfect. The sharks persist because the balance is always in their favor. Their very rarity is part of their strategy. Unlike swarming fish, they do not need to be numerous. Each encounter is weighted towards success, and that success sustains them for long stretches between meals. Humans, standing at the surface, often think of sharks as threats to us. But the truth is different. These sharks pose no danger to people, for we do not swim at their depths. And even if we did, they would see us as little more than passing giants too strange to be prey. Their danger lies instead in what they reveal about nature itself. They show us that survival shapes life into forms we may call monstrous, but those forms are simply answers to the abyss. They are dangerous because they are efficient, because they endure where almost nothing else can. And so the image of the frilled shark and the goblin shark remains in the mind long after the lights of the submersible fade. One drifts like a ribbon from the past, mouth lined with endless needles. The other glides like a phantom, jaws ready to spring into the future. They are not nightmares but realities, living ghosts that remind us that Earth still holds mysteries older than our species. As the craft rises and the water grows brighter, the memory of their shapes lingers. We know now that the abyss is not empty. It holds serpents of prehistory and phantoms of evolution, each waiting with patience born of millions of years. But even these ghosts are not the deepest, Further still lie creatures that defy our sense of limits, fish that live where even sharks cannot endure, pressed into the farthest reaches of pressure and silence. The next chapter will bring us to them, to the snailfish that has mastered the deepest trenches, to bodies so soft they seem to be made of water itself, yet so strong they live where nothing else with a spine can. From living ghosts, we descend to the deepest fish of all. The trench floor is a place that should be empty. The pressure here is more than 1,000 times greater than at the surface. The temperature hovers just above freezing, and the darkness is eternal. For decades, scientists assumed that no fish could survive in such an environment. It seemed impossible for cells to function, for proteins to maintain their shape, for nerves to carry signals under such crushing force. And yet, when cameras finally reached these depths, a delicate shape drifted across the lens. It was small, gelatinous, and ghostly pale, but unmistakably a fish. This was the Hadal snailfish, a creature that holds the record for the deepest living vertebrate known. The first impression of the snailfish is almost fragile. Its body is soft and translucent, lacking scales, with a skin that seems to shimmer faintly under artificial lights. Its skeleton is reduced to the bare minimum, bones softened into cartilage like supports. Its muscles are weak compared with shallow water fish, yet in its world this softness is an advantage. Where pressure would crush rigid structures, flexible bodies yield and survive. It is a design not of strength but of surrender, and in surrender lies endurance. The snailfish glides just above the sediment, its fins spread wide like wings that steer rather than propel. It feeds not by chasing, but by picking. Small amphipods, tiny crustaceans that swarm near the seafloor form the core of its diet. The snailfish hovers, senses the movement of prey and sucks it in with a quick motion of its mouth. It does not need to hurry. At these depths, predators are few, and patience is the key to survival. What makes the snailfish remarkable is not only that it lives at depths beyond 7 kilometers, but that it thrives there. Biologists have recorded species such as Pseudoliparus swirri inhabiting the Challenger Deep, at depths where human submersibles strain to survive. The discovery forced science to reconsider the limits of vertebrate life. The snailfish shows that there is no simple line beyond which life cannot go. Instead, there are adaptations upon adaptations, each a response to one more barrier. The chemistry inside its cells tells part of the story. Proteins are the engines of life, but under immense pressure they can unravel, losing their shape and failing to function. The snailfish carries unusually high concentrations of molecules called osmolytes, in particular a compound known as TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide. This substance stabilizes proteins, preventing them from collapsing under pressure. The deeper the fish lives, the more TMAO it accumulates, up to the point where its blood and tissues carry concentrations lethal to other creatures. What would poison most animals sustains the snailfish, allowing its enzymes to work even in the crushing black. Its sensory system is equally tuned to this world. Eyes are small, for light does not exist here. Instead, its head is equipped with pressure-sensitive canals that detect vibrations and perhaps chemical receptors that guide it to the scent of prey. Unlike predators higher up, the snailfish does not need lures or weapons. Its world is filled with small creatures carried by currents, and its task is simply to collect them. In doing so, it becomes not a terror of the trench, but a keystone, converting the energy of the microbial and invertebrate world into vertebrate flesh. The simplicity of its form is deceptive. To our eyes, it may look unfinished, a fish without scales, without armor, without speed. But this is what success looks like under 11 kilometers of water. Every gram of bone removed is less risk of fracture. Every reduction in muscle is less energy spent. Every drop of TMAO is another safeguard against failure. The snailfish has refined itself not toward power, but toward possibility, proving that vertebrate life can reach depths we once thought impassable. When submersibles capture footage of them, they do not dart away in panic. They hover, curious, sometimes approaching the camera, their faces marked by wide mouths and faint smiles. To human viewers, this gives them a strange friendliness, as though they are ghosts welcoming us into their realm. In truth, their behavior is simply the result of an ecosystem without large predators. With no need to fear attack, they can approach without caution. It is a glimpse into a world where the rules of fear are rewritten, where the most dangerous thing is not a hunter but the scarcity of food itself. For the snailfish, reproduction is another puzzle adapted to extremes. Some species lay eggs in clusters beneath rocks or in crevices, protecting them from currents. Others may release them freely into the water, letting chance guide survival. In either case, the young must begin life in a place of enormous pressure, where failure to adapt means instant death. Their small, translucent bodies mirror those of the adults, proof that softness is not weakness, but necessity. The existence of the snailfish has broader meaning. If vertebrates can survive at depths of more than 8 kilometers, what does that say about life beyond Earth? Oceans hidden beneath the ice of Europa or Enceladus may be just as cold, just as dark, and just as pressurized. If life can thrive here in the Hadal trenches of our own planet, then perhaps it can thrive there as well. The snailfish is not only an animal of the deep, it is a messenger of possibility, telling us that life's reach may be wider than we dare to guess. It is a paradox of perception. To us, the snailfish looks weak and fragile, but in truth, it is stronger than almost any other fish, because it survives where others cannot. Strength in the abyss is not about armor or teeth. It is about chemistry, patience, and a body that bends instead of breaks. The snailfish is a reminder that our surface instincts do not apply in the dark. To endure here is to redefine what it means to be strong. And so the image of the snailfish drifts in the mind like the fish itself drifts in the abyss. Soft, pale, delicate, and yet perfectly adapted. A living contradiction that proves life finds a way wherever water exists. In the quiet of the trench, the snailfish hovers as proof that limits are not barriers but invitations. The Hadal world is a slow machine that runs on steadiness. Currents move like rivers of glass, sediment drifts down in grains of time, and every creature calibrates its life to this metronome. In that quiet engine, the snailfish is not an oddity, it is a central gear. Cameras set on the trench floor often show the same choreography. A bait container lowers through black water, touches down in a puff of silt, and after a patient pause, pale bodies appear from the gloom. They circle, tilt their broad fins like wings, and peck gently at the amphipods that swarm the bait. Their mouths open and close in small gulps, each movement neat and exact. They do not fight, they do not rush. There is enough for all that arrive, and the ones that feed first drift aside with the same unhurried grace. The body of a snailfish looks like a contradiction made real. It is soft, but it does not tear. It is flexible, but it does not fail. The trick is in the chemistry of every cell. Pressure squeezes water and shifts the shapes of proteins, yet the snailfish carries a store of small molecules that act like braces inside a building. Trimethylamine N-oxide, the same compound that gives some fish a sharp scent at the surface, is present at high levels in the blood and tissues. It props up enzymes so they keep their form under pressure. It cushions the folding of vital proteins so they do not crumple. Deeper living individuals carry more of it because the need grows with every additional kilometer. There is a boundary implied here. At some point, the fluid of the body would need so much of this stabilizer that other processes would falter, and so the snailfish may live near a natural limit for vertebrate life, not because bone and flesh cannot take the weight, but because the chemistry that stitches life together begins to pull apart. The skeleton answers the same challenge in a different way. Rigid supports are a liability under relentless weight. So many bones are thin and lightly mineralized. The skull is a frame rather than a fortress, and the spine is a string of gentle links. There is no gas-filled swim bladder that would compress and expand with depth. Buoyancy is controlled by oils and by the exact balance of tissues that are almost the same density as seawater. The result is neutral drift with very little energy cost. A slow flick of the tail moves the fish forward. A tilt of the pectoral fins changes direction. Nothing is wasted. Vision is a minor sense in a world without light, yet the eyes remain. They are small dark beads that likely pick up the faintest glimmer from drifting bioluminescent specks, or from a scientist lamp that falls briefly from above. More important are touch and smell. Canals run along the head and body and open in pores that feed signals to hair-like cells. Any ripple in the water becomes information. The snout tastes the currents as much as it plows them, and the fish follows faint chemical threads toward gatherings of amphipods or toward the slow leak of nutrients from buried organic matter. Sound carries well in the deep, but the world is quiet, so fine sensitivity to pressure and to odor become the real guides. Diet is simple. Amphipods are the staple, tiny crustaceans that graze or tear at whatever food arrives from above. The snailfish hunts by being first on the scene and by staying as long as needed. When a large carcass falls, the party of scavengers may last for days, then for weeks, then for months, as the feast dwindles to bone and film. The snailfish picks at the early stages, then returns to glean fragments others miss. It does not have the tools to saw through thick tissue or crush shells. It wins by persistence and by presence. Its life cycle mirrors the patient world around it. Adults guard the productive edges of trench walls where fresh sediment slides expose buried foods, or they linger in small hollows where currents gather drifting prey. When they reproduce, some species place eggs in sheltered cracks and crevices. The clutches are not large. Energy is too precious for extravagance. The embryos grow in the same cold that slows adults, and by the time they hatch, the young resemble miniature versions of their parents, already tuned for pressure, already moving with the soft economy that defines their kind. No nursery waits for them. There is only the trench, which is both cradle and test. Every movement of the snailfish tells a story about energy. Muscles are weak by surface standards because strong muscles would burn fuel too fast, yet they are more than adequate for a life built on hovering and short bursts. The heart beats slowly but steadily. The metabolism runs cool and long. In this way, a body the size of a human hand can live for years in a place where a mistake could cost days of recovery. Efficiency is not a choice here. It is the only possible way to exist. Sometimes a submersible descends and the fish do not flee. They glide near the glass, mouths opening in mild curiosity, fins holding them steady in the artificial light. This behavior unsettles visitors who expect fear. But at their depth, there are few large predators, so a new shape is not automatically a threat. Their calm is not tameness. It is a lifetime without panic. The danger in their world is not a sudden attacker. It is the long, empty stretch between meals. They share that flaw with other architects of survival. Giant single-celled xenophyrophores decorate the sediment with ornate shells built from stolen grains. Tiny worms twist and sift. Brittle stars curl and release. Each is a cog in the Hadal engine, moving nutrients from one form to another. The snailfish is the vertebrate face of that machine. When we imagine the deepest fish, we picture a lurking monster, but the truth is quieter. The deepest fish is a steward that turns drifting fragments into flesh that can later feed others in turn. The pressure still imposes hard edges. The membranes of its cells must remain fluid at near freezing temperatures, so the fats that make up those membranes are rich in unsaturated bonds that bend and keep the surface from locking into a rigid sheet. The enzymes that split sugars or build proteins must keep working without pause despite the squeeze around them, so they have subtle tweaks in their shape that make them less likely to collapse. The DNA that carries instructions must be copied and repaired with accuracy, and the machines that do that work must not jam. Each part is a small solution to a problem that never goes away. There are moments of drama even in this gentle life. A sudden landslide far above sends a turbidity flow surging down a trench wall, a river of silt that moves like a storm. The water clouds, the current scours, and every animal must brace or flee. Snailfish hug the bottom and press into hollows until the storm passes. When the current settles, the seafloor is changed. New patches of buried matter are exposed. New ridges channel prey into slow eddies. The fish explore with careful sweeps, and a new map of opportunity takes shape. The study of these animals carries an irony that is hard to ignore. The very act of visiting can change what we see. Lights attract, cameras bait with food, and engines stir currents. Scientists know this and plan with care. Long-term landers sit without shining and record only what is there. In those quiet films, the snailfish are never violent, never chaotic, only methodical. They pass and repass the same square meter as if writing circles around the patience of the deep. In their soft bodies is a proof that matters beyond curiosity. If vertebrate flesh can function at such depths, then perhaps the step from chemistry to life is easier than we once believed. Water, pressure, and a source of energy may be enough in many places across the cosmos. Think of an ocean sealed under ice on a distant moon. No sun, only tidal heating and chemical energy. In that black could drift creatures that rhyme with our snailfish, bodies tuned to give rather than resist, mouths that taste currents, lives measured in long seasons of scarcity and brief festivals of food. The trench becomes a telescope aimed inward and outward at once. Yet the snailfish also ties us back to the larger story of death and renewal that runs through the deep. A whale that dies at the surface may sink into a trench and become a city, a pulse of richness that draws in amphipods, crabs, and fish. The feast lasts until even the bone is bare. Then, other specialists arrive to mine the last reserves. Worms bore into the skeleton and drink the fats hidden inside. The snailfish does not do this work, but it patrols the periphery, taking what small pieces float loose. In the next chapter, we will follow those worms into the bone itself and see how life wrings food from what seems empty. For now, the image holds. A pale fish hovers in black water, a meter above a plain of silt that stretches past sight. Its fins ripple in tiny waves. Its mouth opens and closes. A scatter of amphipods flickers like quiet snow. Nothing else moves. It is a scene as simple as a line drawing and as complex as a city, a scene that repeats each day and each year without need of dawn or dusk. The deepest fish on Earth does not shatter the darkness. It illuminates it from within by showing that life needs only a thread of energy and a design that embraces rather than defies the world it inhabits. When the camera light finally fades and the recording ends, the fish remain. They have no need of us to keep the story turning. They will be here tomorrow in the same patient motion, and they will be here after many tomorrows, provided the rain of food from above does not fail. The trench will hold them as it has held so many forms before, and we will carry their lesson back to the surface. Strength in the abyss is softness that does not break. Survival is calm that does not tire. Mastery is the art of moving almost not at all. The next time a body falls to the bottom and settles, the amphipods will gather first. Then the snailfish will appear, drifting in from the edges like quiet moons, harvesting the small riches the fall releases. In days the skeleton will show, and in weeks it will stand alone on the plain, and then the work of other engineers will begin. That work belongs to worms with no mouths and no stomachs, worms that eat bone by dissolving it, worms whose roots tap fats the way a tree taps water. The trench is ready to introduce them, and through them to show how even a skeleton is not an ending but a beginning. On the abyssal floor, death is not an end. A whale that dies at the surface begins a descent that can last weeks, its massive body slowly falling through kilometers of black water until it strikes the trench plain in silence. What seems like tragedy becomes a celebration of life for the creatures waiting below. First come the scavengers, hagfish, amphipods, crabs, tearing at the soft flesh. Days pass, then weeks, and the feast dwindles to muscle and skin clinging to bone. It is here that the most unlikely inheritors arrive. They are worms without mouths, worms without stomachs, worms that thrive by burrowing directly into bone and drawing life from the last hidden reserves of fat and oil. They are called Osedax, the bone devourers, and in their strange biology lies one of the most haunting adaptations in the abyss. At first glance, they hardly resemble animals at all. Rising from the skeleton are tufts of red plumes that look more like the stalks of plants than the bodies of worms. These plumes wave gently in the current, drawing in oxygen. Beneath them, hidden inside the bone, spread root-like tendrils that bore into the mineral, dissolving it with acid and reaching toward the lipid-rich marrow within. The worms digest these fats not on their own, but through a partnership with bacteria living inside their tissues. The microbes perform the chemistry, breaking down oils into nourishment, while the worms provide them with shelter and access. Together they turn bone into fuel, and together they create a living garden sprouting from a skeleton. What makes Osedax especially eerie is how specialized they are. They cannot survive without bone, They do not drift through the water in search of other foods. They are tied to death itself, blooming wherever a carcass falls. And they are astonishingly successful. Within days of a whale skeleton's arrival, dozens of species may be present, carpeting the ribs and vertebrae with forests of red and white stalks. Each worm extends deeper into the bone, consuming it from within until the structure hollows and collapses. Their reproduction adds another layer of strangeness. The females dominate, sometimes reaching several centimeters in length, their roots branching through bone. Males, in contrast, are minuscule and never leave the bodies of the females. They exist as little more than packets of sperm, hundreds of them living inside a single female, forever fused to her, ensuring that she can fertilize her eggs without ever needing to search for a mate. It is an extreme example of sexual dimorphism, a solution to the problem of finding partners in a vast and sparsely populated ocean. In the deep, chance encounters are too rare to rely upon, and so the males have given up independence entirely. When scientists first discovered Osedax in the early 2000s, they were stunned. The worms had been invisible until remotely operated vehicles returned with footage of what looked like gardens sprouting from a whale fall. Further dives revealed not only their presence but their abundance. They were not rare at all, only hidden, waiting for the moments when death provided them with opportunity. Since then, new species have been found on bones of fish, sea lions, and even dinosaurs preserved in stone, suggesting that this lifestyle is ancient, stretching back tens of millions of years. They may have evolved alongside whales themselves, adapting to a steady supply of skeletons sinking through time. The ecological role of Osedax is profound. Without them, bones might linger for decades, locking away the rich fats inside. With them, those reserves are released back into the ecosystem, fueling bacteria, crustaceans, mollusks, and fish. They are recyclers of the abyss, breaking down what seems inedible and turning it into life again. Their presence ensures that nothing is wasted, that even the hardest remains of a giant become part of the food web. In this way, they are as important as any predator. Their danger is not in teeth or jaws, but in inevitability. Where there is bone, they will come, and the bone will not last. The image of them clinging to a skeleton is both unsettling and mesmerizing. A rib that once held the structure of a whale now blossoms with crimson stalks. A skull that once housed a giant's brain is pitted with holes drilled by roots. The ocean does not allow permanence. Even bone, even death is only a stage in the cycle. The worms remind us that endings are illusions. Life continues by transforming loss into beginning. And yet, as with so many deep-sea creatures, they also whisper possibilities beyond Earth. If life can thrive by eating bone with the help of bacteria, what might thrive in alien seas where chemical energy hides in stone or ice? The partnership between worm and microbe shows how survival can come from alliances as much as from teeth. It is not always the largest or fiercest that rule. Sometimes it is the smallest, working unseen, turning absence into sustenance. To descend upon a whale fall in the trench is to witness a spectacle of transformation. First, the feast of flesh, then the slow rain of worms, then the final collapse into sediment. By the time the worms have finished, the skeleton is ghost-like, a shell with its marrow drained. Around it, other creatures move on, carrying fragments of that energy into their own cycles. The trench has taken death and spun it into life again. In the black silence, the Osedax remain, their roots buried deep, their plumes swaying like a forest with no light. They are neither beautiful nor grotesque. They are necessary. They are the answer to a question the abyss asks every day. What will you do with what is left? The worms reply with patience, with partnership, with persistence. They are bone-eating zombies not because they are monsters, but because they make sure nothing in the ocean truly dies. The abyss is a theater of extremes, teeth like glass needles, jaws that leap forward from skulls, worms that dissolve bone. Yet not every creature here is built on menace. Some are shaped instead by elegance and illusion, drifting through the black as if auditioning for roles in another world. Their bodies seem designed not for violence but for a kind of silent choreography, where each movement is graceful, each adaptation a quiet poem written in flesh. Among them are two cephalopods whose forms defy expectation. the Dumbo octopus with its ear-like fins that let it hover like a ghost, and the vampire squid with its cloak of arms and fireworks of living light. They are fragile to our eyes, almost whimsical, but their existence is as serious as any predators. In the Hadal realm, softness and strangeness are not weaknesses, they are survival. The Dumbo octopus is named for its fins, broad lobes that sprout from the sides of its head and beat gently like wings. These fins do not push it forward with speed, but lift and lower it with patience, letting the body glide through the abyss in smooth arcs. Unlike its shallow water relatives that jet backward in sudden bursts or crawl along the bottom on arms, the Dumbo octopus floats with a serenity that seems almost dreamlike. When lights fall on it from a submersible, the creature sometimes tilts its head and hovers as if in curiosity, ears pulsing slowly, skirted arms trailing like the hem of a robe. Its body is gelatinous, translucent in some species, glowing faintly where internal organs scatter light. It does not rush, it does not threaten. Yet within its calm is an ambush hunter, waiting for the brush of a shrimp or worm. These octopuses live deeper than any others, with records of species descending beyond 7 kilometers into trench waters. At such depths, speed and aggression bring little reward. Prey are scattered and energy is precious. The Dumbo octopus survives by conserving, by hovering still and folding its arms around food when chance delivers it. Its beak, hidden at the center of its skirt, snaps closed with quiet efficiency. There is no drama, only a meal taken, and the drift continues. In this way, the octopus embodies the trench itself, unhurried, unbothered, yet inexorable. The life cycle of the Dumbo octopus reflects the unpredictability of its world. Unlike many cephalopods that breed once and die, it produces eggs continuously, with several stages of development present at once inside the female. When conditions are favorable, some eggs are released while others are held back for later. This staggered reproduction ensures survival when food is rare and unpredictably distributed. Hatchlings emerge as fully formed miniature adults, already capable of swimming, already fitted to the crushing cold. There is no nursery, no shallow water childhood. Life begins and remains in the abyss. There are more than a dozen known species, each with subtle differences in size, color, and fin shape. Some glow faintly with bioluminescent dots along their arms, others shift pale pink or brown depending on stress. To see them all together would be to realize that the trench does not limit imagination. It expands it, producing variations that are at once familiar and alien. The Dumbo octopus is a reminder that life in the deep is not only survival, it is also invention. If the Dumbo octopus is the phantom glider of the abyss, the vampire squid is its master of illusion. Despite the name, it does not drink blood, nor does it kill with sharp precision. Its body is small, rarely more than 15 centimeters long, with arms connected by a cloak of skin that can wrap around its body in defense. When threatened, it inverts this cloak, exposing rows of soft spines that look like teeth. The display is theater, a costume meant to frighten predators into hesitation. In the deep, hesitation is enough. While the attacker considers, the vampire squid slips away. Its eyes are enormous, the largest relative to body size of any animal on Earth. They are windows the size of marbles in a body no bigger than a hand, tuned to catch even the faintest trace of light. In the trench, such vision is not a luxury. It is the difference between drifting into a predator's mouth and detecting the subtle shimmer of bioluminescence from meters away. The eyes are said to glow red or blue depending on the angle of light, giving the animal an even more spectral appearance when seen through cameras. The vampire squid is also armed with one of the most spectacular defenses in the ocean. When disturbed, it ejects a cloud of glowing mucus filled with sparkling particles of light. Unlike ink, which would vanish in the blackness, this cloud blazes like a miniature galaxy, confusing and dazzling attackers. While predators snap at the glowing plume, the squid contracts its fins and drifts silently away, vanishing into the dark. The effect is breathtaking, as if the abyss itself has opened and poured out stars. But the true oddity of the vampire squid is not its cloak or its fireworks, it is its diet. Unlike every other cephalopod, it does not hunt. It survives on the constant drizzle of marine snow, the endless fall of tiny particles from the surface world. Bits of plankton, dead cells, fecal matter, scales, fragments of jellyfish, all of it drifts down, and the vampire squid gathers it with two thin filaments that extend from its body. These filaments are covered in sticky cells that trap debris, which is rolled into balls of mucus and delivered to its beak. It is a scavenger in a family of hunters, a collector in a world of predators. Its very name is a misdirection, for it is more janitor than vampire, yet in the abyss, where food is precious, this strategy is brilliant. It feeds not on rare feasts, but on the steady trickle that never stops. The vampire squid is a survivor from another time. Fossils suggest its lineage diverged from other cephalopods more than 200 million years ago. While others adapted to shallow seas, reefs, and coasts, the vampire squid remained in the deep, unchanged in its essentials. Its survival is a lesson in patience. By abandoning competition in the surface ocean and choosing instead the quiet hunger of the depths, it has endured while many others vanished. Together, the Dumbo octopus and the vampire squid show that the trench is not a kingdom only of violence. It is also a kingdom of grace and deception, of strategies that replace aggression with elegance. The octopus floats like a drifting leaf, the squid dazzles like a false starfield. Both show that life can survive by surrendering the contest of speed and strength, by choosing stillness and illusion instead. And yet, to dismiss them as fragile is to misunderstand. These creatures endure pressures that would crush steel, temperatures that freeze bone, darkness that blinds eyes. Their softness is armor, their strangeness is advantage. They are not delicate exceptions. They are proof that the abyss rewards the unusual. Where other animals fail, they persist, generation after generation, undisturbed by our gaze. For explorers who see them through glass, the encounter is unforgettable. A Dumbo octopus lifts its ear like fins in slow rhythm and drifts past as though gravity were only a rumor. A vampire squid bursts into a cloud of glowing sparks, then vanishes into black. Both leave behind the same impression. The abyss is not only terrifying, it is beautiful. Its beauty is not the beauty of color and light, but the beauty of persistence, of invention, of creatures that thrive by becoming something entirely unexpected. They are not nightmares, but wonders. In their presence, we are reminded that the deep sea is the most alien place on Earth, a laboratory of forms that seem impossible until we see them alive. To descend among them is to step into a dream where wings grow from octopuses and squids hide in galaxies of their own making. They are the oddities of the abyss, and they prove that life's imagination has no limit. In the trench, danger is not always a flash of teeth or the sudden lunge of a predator. More often, it is silent observation, a gaze from the dark above or below. To survive in such a world, many creatures do not fight or flee, they vanish. Camouflage becomes the most powerful weapon, and in the depths of the ocean, camouflage is not just color, but light itself. Two of the most remarkable examples are the hatchetfish and the barrelay, small and fragile in appearance, but masters of invisibility. They embody the paradox of the abyss. To remain alive, you must not be seen, yet to hunt, you must see in ways others cannot. The hatchetfish takes its name from its body, thin and compressed, shaped like the blade of a hatchet. It is a tiny animal, rarely longer than a few centimeters, but it has perfected a disguise that works even in a realm without sunlight. Its sides shimmer with a metallic sheen, and its belly glows with organs called photophores. These organs produce light that matches the faint illumination filtering down from the surface, a technique known as counter-illumination. To a predator looking up from below, the hatchetfish does not cast a silhouette against the dim ceiling of the sea. Instead, it disappears, its own light cancelling out its shadow. It is as though the fish paints itself out of existence. The mechanism is precise. The photophores can adjust their brightness to match changing conditions, dimming or brightening depending on how much light penetrates the water. This requires not only chemical control of bioluminescence, but sensory feedback that allows the fish to measure its own visibility. It is a delicate balance. Too bright, and it glows like a lantern. Too dim, and its outline is betrayed. Yet the hatchetfish performs this calibration effortlessly, drifting invisibly in a realm where being seen means being consumed. Its eyes are equally extraordinary. Tubular and upward-facing, they are designed not to scan the horizon, but to watch the ceiling of the ocean. They capture silhouettes, the faint shapes of animals drifting above. Even the movement of a tiny shrimp against the dim light is enough to betray its presence. To us, the water column above would seem uniformly dark, but to the hatchetfish, it is a canvas on which shadows write themselves. It hunts by seeing what others cannot and hides by making itself unseen. This dual mastery is why it thrives. The barrel-eye fish, sometimes called the spookfish, takes invisibility to another level. At first glance it seems unremarkable, a small body with broad fins that hold it motionless in the current. But above its snout rises a dome of transparent tissue, a clear shield through which its eyes can be seen. The eyes are not flat like ours but tubular, cylinders that point upward inside the dome. They stare through the translucent shield, watching the ceiling of the ocean for prey. This arrangement allows them to collect more light than a normal eye, focusing every photon onto the retina. In a world where light is measured in the smallest fragments, such sensitivity is the difference between hunger and survival. For decades, scientists puzzled over how the barrel eye could feed with eyes locked upward. Then, high-definition cameras revealed the truth. The eyes can rotate. Inside the clear dome, the green-lensed cylinders swivel forward, aiming at prey directly in front of the mouth. The fish can track an animal drifting overhead, then shift its gaze to intercept as it approaches. This mobility makes it one of the strangest visual systems in the ocean. It sees the world not as a flat panorama, but as a shifting tunnel of shadows and shapes. The transparent dome itself is an adaptation as remarkable as the eyes. It protects the sensitive organs from the stings of siphonophores, colonial jelly-like creatures that stretch for meters in the trench and serve as both habitat and hunting ground. The barrel eye often lurks among the tentacles of these drifting colonies, stealing prey caught by their stings. The dome shields its eyes from injury, allowing it to live inside the very danger that provides its meals. It is a strategy of audacity masked by silence. Like the hatchetfish, the barrel eye is not large. It does not terrorize the trench with violence. Its weapon is invisibility. The dome is nearly invisible in water, the body small and still, the eyes watching without betraying. When it moves, it does so slowly, holding itself in the current with almost no effort. In its stillness lies safety. A predator that hunts by motion may never notice it at all. The lives of these fish are short compared with the endurance of sharks or octopuses, but their strategies are timeless. Camouflage and vision are universal answers to predation. What makes them striking in the trench is how far evolution has taken those answers. Light is scarce, so they create it themselves and shape it to erase their presence. Shadows are faint, so they invent eyes that can see the faintest trace. In the arms race of the abyss, they do not grow larger teeth or stronger muscles. They refine invisibility and perception to an art form. Their presence also shifts our sense of what danger means in the trench. Not every threat is a lunge or a bite. Sometimes the greatest danger is the unseen gaze of something that can vanish at will, or the stare of tubular eyes hidden behind a transparent shield. To their prey, these fish are nightmares not because of what they look like, but because they do not look like anything at all until it is too late. For the human imagination, the hatchetfish and barrel eye are almost spectral. One vanishes by painting itself in light, the other stares through a glass skull with eyes that rotate like machinery. To encounter them through the lens of a submersible is to question whether we are still on Earth. Yet they are not illusions. They are the result of natural selection, shaped by scarcity, by pressure, by darkness. They remind us that the deep sea is not empty. It is full of inventions we never anticipated. As the submersible drifts upward, the lights catch a flicker of silver, then nothing. Perhaps it was a hatchetfish vanishing into its own glow. Perhaps it was a barrel eye, still as glass, watching from within its dome. The lights fade, the abyss returns to shadow, and the camouflage masters remain, unseen yet present, shaping the trench with their quiet power. The abyss does not need giants to inspire fear. It is not only sharks that haunt the trench, nor squids the size of ships. Sometimes the most unnerving predator is no larger than a human hand. In the lightless waters of the Hadal zones, one of the most haunting shapes belongs to the black sea devil anglerfish. To gaze upon it through the lens of a remotely operated vehicle is to feel as though the darkness itself has grown a mouth and decided to feed. Its body is little more than teeth, a shadow of flesh, and a single glowing lantern. It is not speed or strength that makes this creature terrible. It is patience, deception, and an economy of design so brutal that it feels like a nightmare brought to life. At first sight, the black sea devil looks like a caricature of hunger. Its skin is velvet black, absorbing the faintest light that touches it. The head is massive compared with the body, the mouth gaping with long, translucent fangs that point inward like a cage. The jaws hang open even when it drifts motionless, for in its world, a second of delay could mean losing a meal that might not come again for weeks. Its stomach stretches far beyond its size, able to contain prey nearly equal to its own length. It is a creature designed not to chase but to engulf, a living trap that waits in the dark. The most chilling feature of the sea devil is not its teeth but its lure. Rising from the top of its head is a slender rod called the Elysium, tipped with a bulb called the Esker. This bulb glows with bioluminescent light, a pale, cold flame produced not by the fish itself but by colonies of bacteria that live symbiotically inside. These bacteria generate light in a chemical reaction, fed by the nutrients of the fish, while the fish controls the brightness and the twitch of the lure. The result is a tiny point of radiance in a sea of black. To a shrimp or small fish drifting in the trench, the light promises food, safety, or the presence of another animal. But it is a lie. The prey approaches enchanted, and in the instant it comes within reach, the jaws snap closed, the fangs interlock, and the light becomes the last thing it will ever see. Encounters with these predators are rare, for they live at depths of 2 to 3 kilometers and deeper, where submersibles seldom linger. But the few moments captured on film are unforgettable. A small shape drifts into view, hardly visible until the lure ignites like a floating ember. The anglerfish hangs beneath it, jaws agape, body slack, as if lifeless. Then, with a sudden flex, the entire head surges forward, and the glow vanishes into its mouth along with the victim. The scene is over in less than a heartbeat. The predator returns to stillness, the lure swaying gently as though nothing has happened. The economy of its hunting is its greatest weapon. In the deep, where energy is scarce, to waste movement is to die. The black sea devil waits motionless for hours, sometimes days, expending almost nothing. Its metabolism runs slowly, its muscles weak, its skeleton reduced. All extravagance is stripped away, leaving only what is needed: lure, teeth, stomach. This is survival by subtraction, a body edited down to darkness and hunger. The strangeness of the black sea devil does not end with its hunting. Its reproduction is among the most bizarre in the animal kingdom. The females are the monsters we see in footage with lures and fangs. The males are tiny, fragile creatures no larger than a fingernail, lacking lures, lacking large teeth, equipped only with an unshakable drive to find a female. In the immensity of the ocean, this search is nearly hopeless, so evolution has given them a final solution. When a male finds a female, he bites her body and never lets go. Over time, his flesh fuses with hers, his circulatory system merges into hers, and his organs wither away until nothing remains but testes and vessels. He becomes a permanent parasite, providing sperm whenever she needs to reproduce. In some cases, multiple males fuse with one female, living as small nodules on her skin. They are not partners but appendages, sacrifices to the scarcity of mates in the abyss. To human eyes, this seems grotesque, an erasure of individuality. Yet in the logic of the trench, it is elegant. The female never risks failure to find a mate. The male never risks starving alone. Together, they solve a problem that would doom them otherwise. Love has no place here, but survival has written its own contract. The larval stage of the black sea devil reveals another face of its story. Eggs rise to shallower waters, where larvae drift among plankton, translucent and fragile. In this stage, they are unrecognizable, thin filaments with tiny jaws, feeding on microplankton until they grow large enough to descend. Only then do they transform into the dark bodies of adults. This two-phase life cycle ensures that the species uses both surface productivity and trench emptiness, spanning two worlds that almost never meet. There are many species of anglerfish scattered across the deep sea. Some dangle lures like fishing rods, others carry glowing filaments from their fins, some wave bioluminescent tendrils like jellyfish. But the black sea devil is among the most iconic. Its face, with jaws forever open and lure forever glowing, has become the emblem of deep sea monstrosity. And yet, the truth is subtler. It is not monstrous at all, but practical. Every adaptation has been carved by necessity. Teeth to trap, stomach to stretch, lure to beckon, male to fuse. There is no excess. There is only survival. To imagine its world is to imagine hunger stretched across vast distances. A squid drifts by, drawn to the glow. A fish rises, chasing what looks like plankton. Each becomes part of the predator, each meal a slow-burning fire that keeps the sea devil alive until the next victim arrives. The lure sways again, the dark mouth waits, and the cycle repeats. When explorers describe the black sea devil, they speak less of science than of atmosphere. The moment it appears in the cameras, the abyss seems to come alive. Its skin swallows the light of the submersible, leaving only the faint lantern and the glint of fangs. It is not the size that unsettles, but the stillness, the impression that it is both present and absent, that you are looking at hunger given form. In a realm where even light is a lie, this predator is the perfect native. And so the black sea devil drifts on, patient and eternal. Its lure glows in the void, promising hope that is only death. Its mouth waits, its stomach stretches, its fused males ride silently on its skin. It is not a monster. It is an answer, as honest as gravity, as impartial as pressure. In the trench, beauty and horror are the same thing. They are survival. The first impression of the trench floor is silence. Cameras lowered through kilometers of water reveal a plain of grey sediment, broken only by the occasional scar of a landslide or the husk of a sunken carcass. The surface looks barren, a wasteland of mud with no movement. But the abyss always punishes quick judgments. If you let the lights linger and the silt settle, if you allow patience to replace haste, the desert reveals its secret architecture. Out of the gloom rise delicate structures, fragile towers built from grains of sand, fragile discs that glisten in the beams, coiling forms that look like spirals of lace. They are not corals or sponges or colonies. They are xenophoephores, single-celled giants whose very existence seems to stretch the definition of life. To call them amoebas is correct but misleading. They are amoebas expanded to monstrous size, cells that have abandoned the microscopic scale and chosen instead to occupy the realm of centimeters. Some are no larger than a coin, others wider than a human hand. Within their labyrinthine shells, there is no colony of cells, no network of tissues. There is only a single cell, flowing cytoplasm threaded through the skeleton it builds grain by grain. Multiple nuclei float in this cytoplasmic sea, orchestrating the functions of life not in thousands of bodies but in one sprawling chamber. Their method of construction is both humble and sublime. They gather particles from the seafloor, fragments of foraminifera, shards of sponge spicules, grains of quartz, and glue them together with secreted organic matter. The result is a test, a shell, sometimes branching, sometimes spreading in plates, sometimes curling in spirals. In the dim light of submersibles, these tests resemble delicate sculptures, as though some artisan had chosen the trench floor as a gallery. Yet they are alive, and the slow pulse of cytoplasm within them marks their identity as single cells rather than lifeless debris. Xenophoephores are fragile. A passing current can snap them, a careless probe can scatter their fragments, and yet they thrive, carpeting the trench floor with densities that astonish scientists. In some regions, thousands occupy a single square meter, their shapes overlapping, their towers forming thickets. They are not rare exceptions but dominant inhabitants, so numerous that they change how we measure biodiversity in the Hadal zone. What once seemed empty is now revealed as crowded, alive with invisible builders. The role they play is larger than their bodies. Their shells provide shelter for countless smaller creatures. Amphipods nestle in their crevices, brittle stars cling to their branches, worms wind through their chambers. By creating complexity out of mud, xenophores transform the plane into a habitat. They are ecosystem engineers in a place where life depends on structure. Without them, the floor would be flat and unbroken. With them, it becomes a labyrinth of hiding places and surfaces, a canvas for diversity to bloom. Their biology carries puzzles still unsolved. Their cytoplasm contains peculiar granules of waste called stercomata, isolated pockets where they sequester toxins and metabolic byproducts. These stercomata can make up much of their internal volume, yet they do not seem to hinder survival. Perhaps they are a form of storage, a way to remove poisons from circulation while maintaining delicate balance. Their cytoplasm also houses symbiotic bacteria, allies that help process nutrients. These partnerships echo those of corals with algae, but unlike corals, xenophyophores need no sunlight. They feed on detritus drifting down from above, sifting and consuming particles too small for others to bother with, turning rain into sustenance. Their resilience is paradoxical. They are fragile to touch, but enduring to pressure. The very forces that would crush many creatures are for them the normal backdrop of existence. They survive in temperatures near freezing, under pressures more than 1,000 times that at the surface, in darkness absolute. Their delicate shells may snap easily, but their lineage has persisted for tens of millions of years, evolving alongside the slow grinding of the ocean basins themselves. Fragility at one scale, resilience at another. That duality is the essence of the abyss. The discovery of xenophyophores altered the story of the trench. Before, the floor was imagined as barren mud, interrupted only by carcasses and rocks. After, it became a living landscape, an ecosystem of giants hidden in plain sight. What does it mean that a single cell can reach such size, can shape habitats for others, can dominate an environment as harsh as the Challenger Deep? It means that our sense of life's limits is narrow and that the ocean continually widens it. To drift across a plain of xenophyophores is to see the trench transformed. The towers rise like coral reefs but without sunlight. The discs spread like mushrooms but without air. The spirals coil like shells but without colonies. Each is a solitary architect, yet together they form cities. In their presence, the abyss is not an empty void. It is a mosaic, alive with builders who leave no sound and little movement, but who engineer survival for countless others. Where xenophyophores reshape the mud into fragile cathedrals, other forces in the trench build oases of life from stone and chemistry. These are the chemosynthetic communities, colonies that thrive not on sunlight but on chemical energy rising from the seafloor. Their appearance is sudden, unexpected, a burst of crowded abundance in an otherwise empty plain. To encounter one through a submersible window is to feel the same shock as stumbling upon a forest in the middle of a desert. Tube worms rise like white pillars, clams cluster in heaps, mussels stretch in carpets across fissures. The water shimmers with faint heat, and bubbles of methane or hydrogen sulfide leak upward from vents and seeps. Where we expect emptiness, there is community, as though the Earth itself has decided to feed the abyss directly. Most life on Earth depends on the sun. Green plants and algae capture light, building sugars that sustain herbivores and predators in turn. But the trench has no light, and the oases here are powered by something entirely different. At the heart of each community are bacteria that use chemical reactions to generate energy. Some oxidize hydrogen sulfide, others methane, others ammonia or iron. Instead of photosynthesis, they perform chemosynthesis, turning minerals into sugars in the dark. These bacteria live free in mats, clinging to rocks like carpets of slime, or they live inside the bodies of animals, forming intimate symbioses that sustain their hosts. The tube worms are among the most extraordinary. Their white tubes can grow meters tall, anchored in cracks where sulfide-rich fluids seep upward. Inside the tubes, the worms have no mouths, no stomachs. Instead, they house vast colonies of chemosynthetic bacteria within a specialized organ called the trophosome. The bacteria oxidize hydrogen sulfide and produce nutrients, feeding both themselves and their host. The worms act as scaffolds, supplying the bacteria with chemicals drawn from the seep, while the bacteria act as stomachs, supplying the worms with food. It is a partnership so complete that neither could survive alone. Nearby clams and mussels perform a similar trick. Their gills are packed with bacteria, turning their shells into miniature reactors that process methane and sulfide. The shells grow large, heavy with the bounty of their symbionts until they cover the seafloor in drifts. Crabs scuttle between them, feeding on fragments. Fish circle above, snapping at the smaller scavengers that gather. A food web unfolds, not from sunlight but from stone, a pyramid built on the chemistry of the earth itself. The effect of these oases is dramatic. Around a vent or seep, the density of life can be thousands of times greater than in surrounding mud. Where before there was only a scattering of amphipods and xenophyrophores, now there are forests of worms, carpets of shells, swarms of shrimp. The trench seems alive in a new way, crowded, noisy, almost celebratory. For a moment the black desert feels like a meadow, the silence broken by the sheer abundance of life. And yet the meadow is not eternal. These seeps are temporary, sustained only as long as the flow of chemicals continues. When the vent cools, the worms die, the clams weaken, the fish move on. The oasis collapses into quiet again, leaving behind only shells and tubes as monuments to its brief fertility. To study these systems is to glimpse a different origin story of life. Many scientists believe that life on Earth may have begun at hydrothermal vents, where mineral-rich fluids and chemical gradients supplied the first sparks of metabolism. The communities in the trench echo this possibility, showing how life can flourish without the sun, how ecosystems can be built entirely on chemistry. They are not only strange oases, but reminders of our own beginning, windows into a past that predates forests, corals, even the first land animals. They are also reminders of possibility beyond Earth. If moons like Europa or Enceladus hide oceans beneath their ice, warmed by tidal heating and pierced by vents, then the recipe for chemosynthesis may be present there too. Tube worms and clams may be unique to Earth, but the principle that microbes can turn minerals into food is universal. The oases of the trench are not just curiosities, they are prototypes of alien ecosystems, experiments already running beneath our seas. Seen through the lens of exploration, these communities are also fragile. A submersible's lights can alter the behavior of their inhabitants. A poorly placed instrument can crush a tube worm colony in an instant. Their richness tempts human hunger. Already there are whispers of mining sulfide deposits, of harvesting methane hydrates. Yet each oasis is irreplaceable, built over decades or centuries, vulnerable to a single careless act. Their value is not in fuel or minerals, but in proof that life is more flexible than we believed. Proof that darkness and silence do not mean emptiness. As the camera pans across a seep, the scene is surreal. White worms sway in unseen currents, their plumes red with oxygen-carrying pigments. Clams yawn slowly in the mud, their shells stained with minerals. Bubbles rise like slow pearls from the cracks, vanishing into black. The light fades at the edges, and beyond the meadow lies emptiness again. The oasis is a circle of life in an infinite plane of silence. Its edges remind us of how rare it is, how fragile, and yet it is here, thriving, showing us that the trench is not barren but inventive, an artist of ecosystems that do not need light at all. Together with xenophyrophores, these oases prove that the trench is not only a graveyard, not only a place where predators drift and worms eat bone, it is also a place where builders sculpt and microbes fuel communities, where landscapes of mud become landscapes of abundance. The abyss is not passive, it engineers, it recycles, it creates. And in doing so, it reminds us that even the deepest silence is never truly empty. The abyss has always been a frontier, but every frontier carries danger. For the creatures that live there, the dangers are natural: hunger, pressure, cold, and scarcity. For the humans who descend in machines, the dangers are of a different kind, yet they are no less relentless. Technology gives us windows into the deep, but the trench is not a place that tolerates mistakes. It is a world where every weakness in design is magnified, every error punished, every instrument tested against forces that never forgive. To reach the Mariana Trench is to confront physics itself. At the bottom of Challenger Deep, the pressure is more than 1,000 times that at the surface. Every square centimeter of a submersible hull bears the weight of tons, as though the ocean were trying to crush the vessel into silence. Steel buckles, seals leak, electronics fail. Even the best designs survive only because their builders calculate every variable with precision. For the explorers inside, there is no margin of error. A flaw invisible in the laboratory becomes fatal 11 kilometers down. The earliest attempts to visit the trench carried this risk like a shadow. In 1960, Jacques Picard and Don Walsh descended in the bathyscaphe Trieste, a sphere of steel suspended beneath a massive gasoline-filled float. As they approached the bottom, a window cracked with a sharp report. The men continued, but the incident reminded them how close they were to the edge of failure. The glass held, but the pressure never stopped pressing. Even their success was fragile, a triumph balanced on millimeters of steel. Modern submersibles are more advanced, their hulls sculpted from titanium, their systems redundant, their electronics hardened against the squeeze. Yet the trench still finds ways to test them. Cameras fog under pressure, lights fail. Manipulator arms freeze when hydraulic fluids thicken in the cold. Even unmanned vehicles are not immune. Remotely operated machines have been lost to snags on unseen ledges, their tethers pulled until they snapped. Autonomous probes have descended, then vanished, their signals swallowed by the weight of water, never to be recovered. Each loss is a reminder that the abyss is not ours to control. The dangers extend beyond mechanics. The sheer darkness itself can trick the senses of the operators. On monitors, shadows seem alive, rocks resemble creatures, currents blur the view. Instruments record pressures and temperatures with accuracy, yet the human mind struggles to interpret what it sees. More than once, explorers have mistaken a reflection on glass for a new animal, a drifting rope for a worm, a cloud of silt for a living swarm. The trench is patient in its illusions. Even when machines work perfectly, the abyss punishes with time. Batteries drain faster in the cold. Communications lag across kilometers of tether. Each dive is a race between endurance and return, with every minute at the bottom carefully rationed. When a probe lingers too long, the risk grows with each passing moment that something will fail before it surfaces. And when failure comes, it is almost always final. There is no rescue 11 kilometers down. Yet perhaps the greatest danger is our own ambition. The more we descend, the more we dream of extracting not just knowledge but resources. The trench hides deposits of rare minerals, nodules rich in cobalt, manganese, and nickel, formed over millions of years in the silence of the abyss. To mining companies, they look like treasure. To life in the trench, they are the very soil of survival. Machines designed to scrape and crush could turn habitats into wastelands in days. A single xenophyrophore field, built grain by grain over centuries, could vanish under a crawler's path in a moment. What technology builds for exploration, technology can also turn into destruction. For the animals of the trench, the dangers of technology are invisible, yet they are real. A cable that snaps releases a machine that may sink and scar the seafloor. A probe that crashes may leak oils or metals. Even light itself is a disturbance. Creatures that evolved in darkness for tens of millions of years react with confusion or attraction to beams of illumination. To us, the lights are tools. To them, they are traps. The invisible threats, then, are not only the pressures and cold that threaten our machines, they are also the choices we make, the instruments we drop, the ambitions we pursue. The abyss is hostile enough without our intrusion. If we are careless, we may become the greatest threat of all. The trench whispers this truth with every dive. The hum of pumps, the groan of hulls, the flicker of cameras, all of it occurs inside a world that does not welcome us. Each success feels like grace, each failure like justice. For the abyss is older than our machines, older than our species, and it is not ours to master. It allows us glimpses, nothing more. To descend is to risk not only our safety, but the safety of the life that endures there, life too delicate to resist our interference. The abyss does not resist in ways we can see. It resists with silence. Every submersible that descends, every probe that drifts downward, is an intruder into a world that has been closed for millions of years. The creatures that live here know nothing of light or metal, yet our presence arrives with both. They do not understand our machines, but they feel their impact in ways subtle and devastating. One of the quietest threats is pollution. Plastic, once thought too light to sink, now rains down in fragments to the deepest basins. Bags, fibers, and microbeads drift on currents until they are caught in the slow-settling mud of the trench. Amphipods have been found with microplastics in their stomachs, consumed unknowingly as though they were food. Fibers tangle in the feeding arms of sea cucumbers. Fragments lodge inside the intestines of fish. What began at the surface finds its way even to Challenger Deep. The abyss was once a symbol of untouched wilderness, but now it holds our refuse, a graveyard not only of whales but of our inventions. Even more insidious are the ambitions of mining. On the abyssal plains lie polymetallic nodules, accretions of manganese, cobalt, and nickel formed grain by grain over millions of years. These nodules attract engineers and investors who see them as resources for batteries and industry, but to remove them is to strip away habitats that support life in silence. Xenophyrophories cling to their surfaces, sponges anchor themselves to their curves, microbial colonies flourish in their shadows. Each nodule is not just a lump of ore, it is an ecosystem. The machines designed to harvest them are massive, armored crawlers meant to scrape the seafloor clean. Their tracks would crush fragile builders, their plumes of disturbed sediment could smother communities kilometers away. A process that took geologic time to create could be erased in days. Light itself is another weapon. Creatures of the Hadal Zone have never seen brightness greater than the faint spark of bioluminescence. When a submersible floods the plain with beams, it is as though a miniature sun has erupted. Fish dart in confusion, worms retract, shrimp scatter. Some are drawn toward the light, exposing themselves to predators or exhausting themselves against currents they would have avoided in the dark. To us, light is a necessity of observation. To them, it is disruption, an unnatural flare in a world that has always known night. Noise follows as well. The hum of motors, the crackle of sonar, the groan of hydraulics travel far in water. Whales hear them even in mid-water, and it is likely that fish and invertebrates in the trench do too. The abyss is not silent to its inhabitants, but its sounds are subtle. The drift of sediment, the rasp of feeding, the occasional distant call of a deep-diving mammal. Against this backdrop, the metallic growl of machines is alien, loud, and constant. We cannot know what it means to them, but disturbance on such a scale cannot be harmless. There is also the question of contamination. Each probe carries oils, plastics, alloys, and coatings. If they fail, these materials leak into a world that has never known them. If they burn out their lights or batteries, they leave behind residues that may persist for centuries. The trench is not quick to wash itself clean. Circulation is slow, sediment settles gently. A fragment dropped today may lie visible 10,000 years from now. The abyss forgets nothing. For the life that endures there, survival is already delicate. Snailfish balance their chemistry against crushing pressure. Xenophyrophores build from grains. Osedax worms wait for bones. Their strategies are ingenious but narrow, tuned precisely to scarcity and darkness. They have no defense against mining machines, against plastic dust, against floodlights that pierce the plain. They cannot adapt to our presence quickly enough. In this way, technology is more dangerous than any predator the trench has ever known, and yet exploration also carries responsibility. Without machines, we would never have seen the Dumbo octopus glide, never have filmed the vampire squid ignite its living fireworks, never have known the existence of the deepest snailfish. Knowledge has come only by entering their world. The paradox is that to learn we must intrude, and to intrude is to risk harm. The challenge for us is restraint, to let the desire for understanding outweigh the desire for exploitation. The abyss does not belong to us, but we carry the power to change it forever. The final threat is the one we seldom name, our own impatience. The trench is vast, slow, and ancient. Our machines are quick, temporary, designed to extract and return in weeks or months. To impose our tempo on this world is to misunderstand it. The abyss has survived meteors, extinctions, and the drift of continents. It will outlast us. But the lives within it are fragile, each adaptation balanced on narrow edges. To damage them is not to wound the abyss, but to erase voices in the long conversation of life that will never be replaced. When the submersible rises, the glow fades, and the trench swallows the intrusion. To the cameras, it looks unchanged. But somewhere a xenophyrophore lies shattered. A snailfish flees a light it cannot comprehend. A fragment of plastic sinks to settle forever. The invisible threats are not the predators we came to study, but the traces we leave behind. They will remain long after our machines return to the surface. The abyss teaches us in silence. It shows us that survival requires patience, that strength is often soft, that beauty can thrive without sunlight. The final lesson may be this, that the greatest danger in the deep is not pressure or hunger or darkness. It is us. To respect the abyss is to leave as little behind as possible, to take knowledge but not to claim dominion. For the trench is not empty, it is alive. And to trespass without humility is to endanger not only its creatures but our own chance to understand them.